What is poppin' people? You got Jay Bear here, bringing you all Shuckle Premier League Week 7 results and Week 8 pick'ems. That's right, this is our final regular season pick'em, final full 10-game slate of pick'ems. So yeah, get excited. I ask if you have been enjoying this series thus far. Please leave a like and a subscription. It would mean a lot to me. We're getting up there in the subscribers. We're over 1,100 now, so thank you all so much for all of the support this season. But yeah, we're gonna get started with our results. Let this be your spoiler warning. If you do not click off, you will be spoiled on the results of Shuckle Premier League Week 7 games in 3, 2, 1. All right. The first game that we see is between Seabad and Emil. This was a back and forth set. Game 1, I really thought Seabad was going to pull it out with his Alolan Muck cursing up, being really, really unstoppable. A little bit of support aid from the Clefairy, but ultimately Emil was able to clutch it up. He used the back of his dog core with the Houndstone especially, putting out enough damage, and the Granbull as well. A bit of an unlikely duo of dogs, but they were ultimately able to pull it out. Game 2, Seabad adapts and goes with the Greedent, and that game plan worked a little bit better, was able to pull out a very close 1-0 game. And then game 3, Emil once again rebounded, this time focusing a little bit on Sandy Shocks and Okidogi's damage output a little bit more, ultimately winning the week and moving him to 6-1, which puts him in great position to earn a bye, and 1-6 will officially eliminate Seabad from playoffs contention. Up next, we see a battle between Nexus and Viz. This was another great set, 3-game set, in which Nexus started off really, really hot. Iron Hands was able to pick up 4 kills, but it's a bit dangerous always. You know, you're looking at Iron Hands into a team with potential Psy Spam mode. Game 2, Viz adapted and went in with his Araquanid, and that Pokemon really, really was doing a lot of damage. I was a bit surprised, but it was my highlight for the week, so I'm a bit happy that that hit. And we saw more of the same in Game 3. A few different Pokemon. No, actually, there were no different Pokemon choices, if I remember correctly. So that was a great game. And Viz is in a pretty good spot if he wins to ensure a bye. Nexus needs a win next week to make the playoffs. Up next, we see Joey versus Moxie. And this was a 2-0 freeze fest in favor of Moxie. There were some unlikely freezes that really lasted a long time. Moxie, self-proclaimed best Blizzard clicker in the league. I think that might be accurate. And 4-3 puts him in a really, really good spot to make playoffs, even if he loses thanks to these Blizzard clicks. Meanwhile, Pokémon now going down to 5-2. That might cost him a bye. He's got a good shot for it. There's two other 6-win teams, Mounte and James, which means that some of these 5-2 guys, only one of them will probably get a bye, depending on how the final weeks shake out, and so that'll be an important match to see how it goes. But yeah, a quick Blizzard game for Moxie. He actually almost ran out of PP on it, game 2 on his Obama Snow, I think, but yeah, it was a great game to watch if you like freezes, and a great coach interview after as well. Up next, we saw Shuckle King versus Keeley, and that was a game where Shuckle kind of took a more balanced approach to it. A lot of his Pokemon really putting in work. I thought we were going to see a little bit more from Persian. You know, I thought that looked like an interesting Pokemon, but, you know, Shuckle opting to leave it on the bench. And instead, we saw a bit of a balanced attack headlined by Urshifu Rapid Strike, really coming in clutch this game and moving Shuckle to 5-2. A win puts him in contention for the bye or being able to pick his playoff opponents, whereas a loss next week for these 5-2 coaches means they're more than likely to get picked in the playoffs. And Keeley is 1-6 and officially eliminated. Up next, we saw Shroom versus Liv, and this was another 2-0 game. I think Shroom had one of the hardest matchups I've seen this season, and Liv kind of showed out this week. Metagross and Volcanion especially, those two Pokemon looked really, really good. I think a lot of people were sleeping on Volcanion early in the season and the drafting phase. It lasted till late round 2, but that Pokemon is fantastic, and Liv showed why here. It really decimated a lot of the balance that Shroom wanted to have with this team. And same thing with Metagross, right? And this was its debut week, I believe, and ultimately Liv was able to show out, go to 4-3, should put her in a very good spot for the playoffs, and Shroom, unfortunately, officially eliminated. Up next, we saw Mountay versus Necra, and this was an interesting set. I think that Necra got in her own head a little bit. We ultimately saw Game 1 be decided in Mountay's favor quite dominantly with Rhyperior. Shout out Team Canada Rhyperior. That guy went absolutely crazy. This was a sword stance Rhyperior in this game, and it just, clicked. And then Game 2, I think Necra had some interesting plays because she had a decent out with the Sableye Sunny Day. If she just attacked with full Corona, maybe we could have gone to Game 3, but Mountay was able to ultimately pick off the game there and take home a win, and then another win will definitely lock him in for the bye. The 6-1 teams really have control over their own fate, which is really, really good here. Necra, unfortunately, officially eliminated. Up next, we saw Tone versus Cybertron, and this was another 2-0 set. There were a lot of them this week, and really it was the Ursaluna, both games kind of doing its thing, and that ultimately led to a pretty decisive win for Cybertron. We saw the debut of some of his new pickups like Staraptor and Meowscarada, although Meowscarada didn't really come off the bench, but the Staraptor actually did. And so this was a great set to watch Cybertron really with Ursaluna and some Trick Room positioning kind of just do his thing. Up next, we saw Owen versus Sierra, and this was a tough, not a tough set to watch, but this was like, I think there were plays on Owen's side. He's one of my good friends, so I definitely gave him a little bit of insight after, but I think there were a couple of turns that could have gone a little bit better for him, but ultimately Sierra was able to capitalize on those turns, particularly Game 1, Roaring Moon went really, really hard. The Terra Poison set was really, I think, just under-prepped for, and we saw that in all 3 games, but Game 2, Owen kind of, I think, he was surprised. I think he was not in as bad of a position as he thought, and then ultimately able to pull out the Game 2 win with Dragonite, and then Game 3, it was just more of the Roaring Moon, ultimately clutching up, which, a bit of an unfortunate thing. I think it was just a very, very good set, and props to Sierra for bringing it. And 2 and 5, coming from the slow start that she did, puts her in a potential position to make the playoffs, which is really, really interesting. A lot of cards I think need to fall the right way. I think it would involve like all of the 3-4 teams losing, but I think there's an outside chance maybe she can make it. I'm unsure what the exact tiebreak scenarios are. Up next, we saw Joe versus That's a +1, and this was a bit of the Terrakion show once again for That's got 5 total kills in the set. It is the league kill leader, I believe, at this point. It's just, it showed out Terrakion, Whimsicott, the tried and true combination, and that's also stuck with, his Hisuian Zoroark guns. I feel like that's his game plan, and it really, really works. He's showed why his team works so well for him, and then 5-2 puts him in another great spot for potentially picking his opponent, whereas Joe 3-4, a win, and he's maybe in. It's hard to say. Up next, we see James versus Cloverbells, and this was a bit of a great set for James, I would say. Goldengo kind of put in a lot of work, especially in the Game 1, Galarian Zapdos a bit more so in the second game, but really just a great game plan from James. I thought he was going to do great work with like his water type offense, and then the Tatsugiri didn't even show. Like, his team is so versatile. I think he might be my favorite to win the league at this point. But yeah, that was our recap of the week. Now we can go ahead and look forward towards our final week of matchups. And first, we see Seabad versus Tone. This one doesn't really have any implications for the league standings, but it's still an important match to be played. And we see on Seabad's side, I want to shout out the Garchomp. Tone's team, I think, is notoriously light on ground resist. He has a few immunities, but the resists are pretty light, especially because like one of them is Thwacky, and that guy is not very bulky and bullied by a lot of the offense on this team. I think Fluttermane also can do great here, but you kind of have to be weary of Excadrill and in the sand you potentially get bopped, and you can't really focus sash to get around it. So there's a bit of challenge in using the Flutter Mane, also because like your Moonblast can be redirected by Ogerpon. But I think that really helps with the Garchomp here. Fairy plus ground is a great combination. I think we'll be able to see that on Seabad's side. On Tone's side, I really do like this Excadrill, right? The only things that really stand in its way are Gyarados and Torterra. I think he has great options for both of those Pokemon. I think Ogerpon naturally is pretty good into those. He does have to be a little bit wary of Intimidate, but I also think Kilowattrel is the unlikely pairing next to this Excadrill to do great work. And I think you could see potentially like a Terra Ice Kilowattrel that really bopped Garchomp, and then Excadrill just kind of putting in the rest of the work. The sand from Tyranitar can be really nice here to get the jump on something like Flutter Mane. I assume even Booster Speed will get outsped, and when you're outspeeding Booster Speed, you're in a great spot. Clefairy redirection, but Iron Head was pretty free even though into the rest of the team, so it's like if you just bop Clefairy or do like 80% of the Clefairy's health and can pick it off with like a Rock Slide, you'll be in a great spot. And for that reason, in this battle of ground types, I do pick Tone to win it. Up next, we see Owen versus Mountay. This is a decently big one going into the week, I believe. Not necessarily needs to win, but Owen, if he gets one game, I believe, off of Mountay, he's guaranteed locked for playoffs. Mountay, if he wins, he's obviously locked for a bye, so there's a little bit to play for both of these coaches. And on Owen's side, I think the Thunderous looks really good. Right, you have Rhyperior potentially to like soak up the electric hit, but it's always one grass, not away from dying. You have Focus Blast for the Archaludon. You have Psychic potentially for the Virizion. Thunderbolt really hits the team hard, or Wild Bolt Storm actually, because you're even in the rain, you just can't get Wide Guarded on. So there's a little bit of considerations for what Owen wants to do with this Thunderous, but I think it has a lot of potential into Mountay's team. Alternatively, you can look at things like Ogerpon, Dragonite, Chien-Pao, standard good guys, but I think that this Thunderous puts Owen's matchup over the edge potentially for Mountay on the offensive side of things. That being said, I really do like Mountay's mouse hold here. Owen has one resist to this thing. It is the Skarmory. So Population Bomb actually looks quite free. Gets around so Focus Sashes, and can even potentially abuse the fact that Owen's Sword of Ruin is weakening his own teammates' defense to potentially get through something like a Scrafty if it's next to Chien-Pao. And alternatively, you're just click and follow me away from the Archaludon, and then we're just beating up into the Archaludon. Owen's team is very physically reliant, and just beating up Archaludon potentially makes it near impossible to KO. And I think Mountay has a lot of tools because of this mouse hold, which is why I do favor him to win this one. Up next, we see Joe versus Shroomraver, and I believe this Electabuzz was dropped earlier in the season and then picked up by Joe here. And I picked it earlier in the season, I believe, when it was on Seabad's team in the matchup into, I believe he was playing Kyle at the time. And I stand by it. I think Electabuzz looks really, really good into this team, into the balanced sort of core. You obviously are redirecting the Spores, which I think is really, really useful. Or something like a Goggles, Gouging Fire, I think is really important. But I think that Joe, especially when he's playing to get into the playoffs, once you're in the playoffs, anything can happen. And so I think Joe's really going to be on his A game this game. I think, he's had a couple of unfortunate plays or sequences in the last few weeks, but I think he's really going to be on his A game here. I think Electabuzz will help him do that, more so than the Raikou especially. And then on Shroom side, I think Incin looks important here. The Intimidate just looks really good because things can't run like Goggles and Clear Amulet, right? That's something that he might want to look to capitalize on, but I think potentially Clear Amulet, Gouging Fire could be really scary here. You also have Primarina for that, but Sneasler and Rillaboom make things kind of complicated, so I think it's going to be like a combination effort from Rillaboom, Gouging Fire, Sneasler, and Electabuzz. And I think Incineroar with like a potential Terra set with Will-O-Wisp is potentially matched well into all of those guys. And so I don't really like Shroom's matchup that much, and I think Joe playing with his back on the wall is going to pull out this game, and I can say that pretty confidently. Up next, we see James versus Shuckle, and James is, playing for the plans or for the bye spot. Shuckle, he's already in. He's 5'2". He's not really able to get the bye. I don't think. Maybe he has enough games, but I'm pretty sure it doesn't necessarily matter win or lose for him. what will happen, but I do like James's Golden Go here a lot. Shuckle is pretty light on steel resists. He does have, like Landorus to potentially knock it out, but Landorus into like the Dondozo matchup, it's always a little bit dicey because if you're out of position, then all of a sudden this Dondozo can go potentially crazy. I don't know if Dondozo combining is the answer here, but like Terra Grass looks pretty free. I would say, even if it's not like combining, just like as a wall for Urshifu Landorus, it looks like a pretty good option in conjunction with this Golden Go, in fact. So I do like what James is doing here, and I think his very balanced team will help him out. And on Shuckle's side, I think the Sinistcha is going to be really important because James can take these games a little bit longer. I think that's where the hospitality can really shine. And I think if Shuckle wants to build like a little bit more of a bulkier team, that's potentially the way to go into James and try to like play him, beat him in his own world, which I don't know how easy that is, and I think James really wants that bye. And I will be picking James in this matchup. Up next, we see Clover versus Joey. Joey was just wronged by the Freeze Gods, and he is potentially playing for the bye spot at 6-2. There's a good chance that he gets it. If not, I think there's one matchup that is also very important for that final bye spot, which I will acknowledge when we get there. But in the meantime, let's look at this one, right? I really like Clover's Ursaluna here. I think that Pokemon looks absolutely insane. Just Earth Power plus Blood Moon, right? There is a Bronzong, but Bronzong is not very well positioned into the rest of this team with, Hisuian Typhlosion, Brute Bonnet, even like Scraggy. We've seen Clover use that Scraggy, and I think that it does have potential merit here. There is like a little bit of a struggle potential with Bronzong, but you can always tech coverage for it, so I'm not too worried about Bronzong in the grand scheme of things for Clover. And I think that he can enable this Ursaluna to go absolutely haywire. But I am worried about the Manaphy for him, right? You click Tail Glow, you click your Water move, you click Ice Beam, and you click Energy Ball, and you kind of win. You do kind of want Protect though, so maybe you drop one of those moves. Maybe you just go like Gleam plus Water move, or maybe you just find a neutral-ish Terra Blast into the team. You can like see there's no Dragon resist, right? So you can go like Terra Blast, Dragon, Tail Glow, Protect, and like just really be fat and try to do it that way. I think that's another option as well. You could go Terra, you could use like a Chalonberry Manaphy, which I believe he did week 1 against Cybertron, so that'd be full circle, right? But no, I really think this is one of Manaphy's best, most well-positioned matchups. And so I do really like Joey in this one. I am going to pick Joey, and I think he really wants that bye more than anyone else in the league. Up next, we see Thatsa versus Nexus. This is a potential kill leader deciding battle. I'll show you guys. I am highlighting these two Pokemon, the Iron Hands and the Terrakion, because this is the chase for kill leader. Both of them are, I believe, 1 and like 2 or 3 on the leaderboard. So I think this is a really important game to decide that more than anything else. Nexus does have an outside shot if he wins, but I really think they're going for kill leader. I cannot lie. I think that says, he's solidly 5-2. He's locked for the playoffs. I don't know how much he cares about the bye compared to getting Terrakion, that kill leader spot. But I think that Nexus, he just wants it more than Thatsa does, just because this win is potential playoffs for him. So I will pick Nexus to win this one. I think, I didn't really talk about the matchup too much, but they're both pretty light on fighting resists, right? And so like that does kind of make sense for these two Pokemon to be very good. Fake Out obviously is another great consideration for this. Iron Hands, something like Clefable is also really important. I considered shouting it out before I realized, this is the kill leader battle, so it's probably best to shout these guys out. But yeah, I do like Nexus' matchup here, and I think he really is playing for that playoff berth. So I will pick Nexus to win this one. Yeah, up next, we see Cybertron versus Viz. This is the matchup that I was getting at that has potential bye implications. And yeah, that's because both of these coaches are 5-2. And the way that it works out, depending on like diff, they might actually be able to clinch the bye with a win and be the 6-2 team that gets it. So it obviously matters, a little bit more with like these other game series wins, but I can't really give a confirmed, definite answer at this point because it also depends on other things, but this is potentially a bye deciding game. And I really do like the Ursaluna in this one. There isn't like any immediate Ursaluna counterplay that I see. There is obviously like Urshifu to worry about, but it has to worry about getting sniped by like a Spectre Draining Kiss or a Cresselia Moonblast or Grimmstorm Spirit Break. There's a lot of stuff for this Urshifu, which I think is really, really hard. But I also do think that it is really, really important here. I think it's going to be Viz's key to victory is figuring out how to get mileage out of this Urshifu, because I just think that, you know, if you bench it, you don't really kill the Urshifu that well, or not the Urshifu, the Ursaluna that well. So I think it's important, but I think that you're going to really, really need to find out how to position it in order to do so when most of the rest of the team can kind of outspeed and kill it. And it's kind of an awkward speed tier in the matchup where it's going to be hard to make it move first. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a bench here, right? But I think benching it potentially leads to the demise of Viz here. Up next, we see Liv versus Keely. And in this one, I think we are going to see a bit more of a slower, methodical game from Liv's side. Try to outlast the potential like Tailwind turns and then win. I think that Alolan Ninetales clicking Aurora Veil, you know, it's kind of hard with like a Prankster Tornadus either taunting you or changing the weather, but I also think like Blizzard spam looks pretty good here. You can even consider like clicking like Encore, just Encore the Torn into whatever it clicks turn 1. You can click like Ice Shard on the Landorus Eye, which I think is pretty funny as well. I think there's a lot of hidden utility in this Alolan Ninetales, and I think that Liv can get a lot of mileage out of it. And she's also 4-3. There's a chance that 4-4 doesn't make. I don't know with her diff what exactly we're looking at, because I think she's won or like a couple of her losses were like 3-game sets, so it's a bit hard to say where exactly it'll end up, but I think this win could potentially put her in consideration for like actually getting a chance to pick her playoff opponent, which I think is very important, is actually getting a chance to choose your matchup. On Keely's side, I really like this Landorus, right? The ground resist on Liv's team have notoriously always been somewhat questionable, especially the top 2 that's weak to ground. I think Metagross is also in a pretty decent spot in this matchup if it wasn't for the Landorus just kind of forcing it in the Arcanine a little bit. But yeah, I think this Landorus has a lot of potential. You just kind of have to be wary of random like trap Ice Charge or something for it. But like Sandsteer or Earth Power plus like Rock Slide can pick off like Vivian and Torn and stuff. I think that it is in a very, very good spot here. But I do like Liv's matchup, and I think she's playing for a little bit more than Keely. And in these final weeks, I think it really comes down to what you're playing for, not just what your matchup is and who wants it a little more. And I think that is Liv in this one. And yeah, thank you guys for getting to the end. I didn't realize it was our last one. It was kind of quick this week. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will see you all next time. Peace. Alright, please don't click off. I realized, I was like, this slideshow does feel a little bit short. It's actually because it was. I accidentally left off, I guess like my slides messed up, but I left off 2 matchups, so we will go through them right now. The first being Sierra versus Amel. This is one that if Amel wins, he gets that bye locked up, so I think that it is pretty important for him to win this one, but I don't think it'll be easy. I think this is Chi Yu's time to shine. Amel has precisely 1 fire resist in the Blastoise, so I think finding like Heat Wave and then like Ogerpon really, really annoys Blastoise, so I think that'll be a really, really important thing for Sierra to figure out. But I think something like Terra Dragon from Amel can also come out here and work. It's just a little bit hard to determine, and also like a Booster Speed Sandy Shocks could potentially keep it in check. You just have to watch out for Ogerpon Wellspring a little bit, so that's something to figure out for Amel. But I have faith he will, and I think that his Spothra is actually pretty cool here. You kill Corviknight, and then like your standard like Dazzling Gleam Lumina Crash set can go kind of crazy. Corviknight, I say you have to kill it because you can't even really like Lumina Crash through it just because of the Mirror Armor ability, so that'll be something for Amel to navigate. But I think that Amel still has this one. I just really like his matchup into this team, and I also really like him wanting his bye week. I think that's important. I think, you know, redirection also here, plus like Hoopa can chew a Chi-Yu hit and you redirect away There's not really much other spread damage on this. And I think we will be in Psychic Terrain. I don't know why, but maybe it's the 2 Indeedis, which I think is pretty funny. And then our final matchup of the regular season, pick'em wise, is Necra versus Moxie. And I really like the Volcarona matchup here, right? You gotta punish the Palafin a little bit, which you can kind of do. I think Lapras also has a good niche here as a way to do that. Punish Iron Bundle as well, and like Parrot Song be annoying. But I think Volcarona, like a Terra Fairy set, looks really good here. You just like Fire plus Fairy, kill the Arcanine with your own Ogerpon, or wall it out. Like, it's not that strong. And I think he'll be golden here to win this one. And then you look at Moxie's side of things, and it is the Como-O here that I am shouting out. There's no fairy type on Necra's side, so what we have been seeing a lot of Como-O get blown up in one. I don't think that'll be the thing here that'll happen. I think that instead Como-O will actually be able to do its thing, and we saw what happened when Como-O did its thing a couple of weeks ago. It was able to win, and I kind of foresee something similar happening here. So I do actually pick Moxie to win this one. But yeah, I will see you all next week for real this time. You don't want to miss next week because there is the playoff information. So yeah, peace.